First of all, I just want to say this. Thank you, God. Is the disgustingness of these perps is just magical. What they do to try to make you acceptive of this fabricated reality, there's no shame in that. They have no shame. They would use their children. They would humiliate their own self-respect. But I'm here to help them, to make sure that I'm the prophet that I'm going to be to them, because I'm not a prophet. There's nothing that there's nothing that I am that's prophet like. Okay, I'm not a prophet. What I just say is the obvious things. That's they do. And they do that. They do that to men, women, and children. I'm so thankful that on TI Day 2020, I was able to say that on August of 2020. I was like, this is torturing men, women, and children all around the world. Right? That alone, just let them know that I know that you guys doing this thing to me are torturing children, men, women, all around the world. The facade they've tried to create themselves to be is just trash. They know if we see each other, the anger should be actually the other way around. You know, some of the things they like to do is like they do the whipping. I'm like, oh my gosh, do the whipping. Just try to do that in front of me and look at me as if I don't know they torture children. The title of this video is called "They're Aweee." It is so disgusting to hear a grown-ass woman with children, the age of these children, that are being tortured. The way she used the word Aweee is because she was trying to counter what they do to children. She's very much aware, this mother, this Lola shit, that the program she's involved in torture children sexually. She's tried to think that this is something I'm going to let go, let it be something normal, that she just accept it and just look at them as, hey, okay, yes, I'm involved in something that tortured children in this fashion. But you know what? Whatever, you know. I'm like, no, never going to happen. And by the way, I know these people are just reading the bottom feeders. It's funny how even today they try to even reconstruct the reality of who put me this program. I love the fact that I'm like, okay, it's going to be so easy for me to be this prophet I'm talking about. Because reality is obviously to the point of even falsifying this reality. I make videos in July 2020, like, nah, this is us. This current employee put you there. Like, I'm literally saying who put me in this program in 2020. Before I even started working for this current employer. The way they even try to recreate reality in this fashion, it's so easy for me to be like, do you see how magical I'm going to be? You'll see. I've been saying how they torture and target the private parts because I've heard how they torture people, including me, using this technology that target the private parts of even children. And so today when I hear a testimony that's just like a year ago saying, oh, my private parts are being harmed again. Okay, well, you see how much of a prophet I am? Literally using the same words I described, saying there's a tendency for them, there's a trend to target the private part. In 2020, I'm saying that. Sorry, in 2021, I'm saying that. 2023, this woman said the exact same thing. I say, now, am I a prophet or is it just obvious what they do? Okay? So it's obvious that they do the things systematically. But the nastiness of what they're part of, that shows that they do these mean, horrible things to even children, then play these protectors of children, is so disgusting. Now, the Aweee is coming from the testimony from Mariana. You're going to hear. Mariana described how she's a teacher and she's teaching kids with mental handicap. These children, some of them have autism, some of them have Down syndrome. Mariana is a target individual who well described in details what she goes through. She's not the only one talking about it. There's others. This woman talks about how when she's teaching her kids, they start torturing their kids to torment her. The torture consists of burning children's genitals, not even burning, sorry, harming the genitals one way or another. I don't know if it's burning, but it's pain of some sort that's applied onto the children's private part. Right? The child says Aweee or so we say something like ow, like that. Now they've been changing that to say, oh, it's gonna be their Aweee. Right? Because the way they try to kind of distort reality is like, oh, deflect that. We're going to be tortured so bad. Like, you're just trying to move away from what you just heard and what you're involved in. Torturing children. Sexually harming them. That's what they're part of. They try to deflect in whatever means to get away from the reality that I'm not a genius. every day, right? They try to find ways to kind of get credibility out of me, and so they bring up whatever they can. It can be something about like, the graph here has this and that, and it's like, you see, but they try to deflect that these people are torturing children. They are involved in a program where children are being tortured sexually. They're targeting the private part. And this child that's only 4 years old, matter of fact, you're going to hear multiple, some of them 3 years old, grabbing their private part because they're being harmed using this sophisticated weapon system. It is evil to the level that you can understand. When you see this trash whipping and making all this noise happening, you know they're involved in that. There's a different type of aggression that you feel. Because what they were trying to do is try to vilify you. Now, you're going to hear the torture of children. Women, oh my gosh, the way they burn women's genitals in the home, like, this is very well detailed. It's so nasty. I mean, these people deserve some hell that is not created yet. And so for me, it's easy to put things into perspective. And as they try to escape into this fantasized reality, I'm like, I'm not going to let you go wherever you want to go to block reality. Never. Deflect. As I'm making this video right now, somebody just sent a chatting message to try to deflect so I can get my focus there and try to create some kind of battles and that. I'm like, I'm not going to. I know what this person's doing. They try to have a distraction to block out the torture of babies. Yes! Babies! Infants! And I love to put that in their faces because every day they have to say, nah, it's not real. I'm like, okay, yeah, yes, you're right, it's not real. You're going to listen to these non-real testimonials. So for me, I'm going to let them, I'm like, you're not going to go into escapism. I'm going to put it in your face to the point where you know when this stuff happens to you, this is what you're involved in. They tell me how I'm going to ride in hell. It's like, I'm telling you, I'd rather ride in whatever hell I'm going to go through. And it's not going to change the theatric torture they hope that I'm going to go through. Well, the theatrical torture, which they hope will change the reality. It's like, I'd rather die in whatever hell. God give me strength to deal with the hell I'm going to go through. But it's better to die in this hell than live in a life where they're involved in a program where they torture children and they live life deflecting that reality. No, death comes to all of us. The hell thing is not going to be forever. I'll die. I'll be away from that. Death will take me away from that hell. That's it. I'm okay with that. But I didn't live life involving in something that does such a horrible things to children and babies, and then pretend like we're protecting kids, and then act all like that, and then deflect the torture. Oh my gosh, the magical things that could be awaiting for these people that are flourishing in heaven can be magical. And I know I'm not going to be I don't need to be a genius or prophet to know that these bottom feeders will get there. Some of them have witnessed it in real time. In real time. Some things are surreal. They start using a man's name that killed himself. This man was a perp. He was a coworker of mine. He ended up taking his own life. They start using his name to describe what I'm going to do to myself. They use his name as a verb for for suicide. This is how foul these people are. But it's okay, they'll get theirs. As they say these things to disturb me, the Aweee, and then you know what they do when they say Aweee? They make me think of, but remember when this kid was going to bath and all, and try to make me think of me as a kid when I lived with like family, and this, it's like, right, you see, you saw her Aweee. It was like, yeah, and then try to put in my brain in the ways they've been putting things in my brain, this pedophilia ways. I was like, oh, it's like, remember you saw that naked baby or this, and try to make me think of their private part, and of course in that disturbing ways to try to make me acceptive of how they manipulate people, because these trash are so foul that they involve in a program where they manipulate the brain in these pedophilia ways. So whatever they can create in your brain that can turn into something sexual toward children, they will. You see the videos I've made. They do this manipulation that's degrading and foul, and they have no shame to fucking play with some brains of an adult person to think about children in sexual ways. They have no problem with that. And they try to sound them fierce, but hey, guess what? Guess who's downloading so much Awees? Yes, the entities they work for. There's been a bill because they're trafficking so much child porn on the DoD using DoD network. There's a bill to try to limit the amount of child porn navigating the DoD network, the internet network, because they're downloading so much of these Awees that they're talking about. I love to put that in their faces as they make me imagine this children's private parts. Try to make me know, but I remember when you were a kid, you saw this, your kid, no, this kid, they were about to shower, was like, oh, you saw her Awees, like, oh. You know, when they're talking about it, and when they make me imagine that it's not something normal, they give you sensation, stimulation, perception that's disgusting. Like today, not even mentioning that, but imagine they go back into your brain, oh, you saw this kid naked. And they try to make you think of the private part, and then try to create this, ugh. They did that multiple times. There's one literally memory where there was the daughter of my best friend's cousin. They were putting lotion. They tried to put it. I was like, but you saw her. Ugh. Now they're going to me when I'm in middle school. They're taking this child that they're about to wash, and it's like, oh, you saw her out. Ugh. It's so nasty. And then they say, oh, but remember what you did as a kid. I'm like, Jesus, you're gonna hear what they do to children. It's like that's child abuse. Like, you torture children. You're talking about me in middle school, a child, 13, 14, doing whatever dumb thing a child that age is capable of doing as an impulsive child. And you think I'm going to block out the way you torture children? You then say you pay, and then they do the whipping? I know they torture children sexually. No, it is my purpose for them to put it in the faces, put reality in their faces. I'm slowly wasting away. I understand that. But hey, this is coming from somebody who's wasting away. And he's been awkwardly, weirdly, right a lot of times in a state where it's scary. Now they have these losers of trash. With this trash, what do they have to show for? They are war. That's how kind of losery they're talking about. They're warriors. Losers of trashy. They're so trashy that they're even having their children say they're gonna use their kids to frame me. Meaning they're gonna say that you did something to their kids, and they're so like the people who aren't their kids. They are loving them. They are thanking them. Like, oh, they are loving the fact that they are gonna sell their own kids, but they will never have their own kids do that. And I'm like, oh, go ahead. Easy prophecy. These kids are not gonna grow up to be okay. How do I know that? Because my magical universe tell me that somebody who grows up doing the foul things they do, framing people, most likely will not grow up to be normal. Something's going to happen in their life. That's because of what they've grown up doing. Growing up framing to people, growing up involved in something that's so disgusting, pushing people into suicide, talking about, working a program where they reward. Oh my gosh, the blessing that's await that child. It's going to be there's these children. I don't know how many children are going to be used to be framing me. I don't know. We'll see. But I reassure you, it's not going to end well for them. So my targeting videos, stay strong and listen to what they talk about at their Aweee.
I am currently a speech-language pathologist working in private practice with young children. I had a 7-year-old client who has autism, and she was the most significantly affected of all of my clients. I eventually had to tell this client to go to another clinic, and they used her to threaten the most torture in me as well as their most extreme forms of torture. For several months, she would cry and scream horribly during our therapy sessions despite having a great day at school. This was highly unusual behavior for her, as she usually behaved very well during her therapy session. I observed her gasping for air a few times in the same way that I do when I am being more severely suffocated. The suffocation had been in a mild state for a while up until this point. Many of their torture methods are cyclical in severity. Right after I saw this child being suffocated, then I began to experience very extreme suffocation all day, every day, for about 2 months straight, and that's also when they made it worse when I eat. And I also work with a 4-year-old little girl with Down syndrome, as well as her 5-year-old sister, who also has Down syndrome. I observed both of these girls suddenly grabbing their genitals in pain and verbalizing, "Ow." I observed this at least on 1 or 2 occasions for each of them during their separate sessions. Suddenly grabbing their genitals in pain and verbalizing, "Ow." I observed this at least on 1 or 2 occasions for each of them during their separate sessions. Suddenly grabbing their genitals in pain and verbalizing, "Ow." I observed this at least on 1 or 2 occasions for each of them during their separate sessions. During one session, I observed one of my 3-year-old clients suddenly grab his crotch and lean forward in his chair. And then he made a frightening grimace of severe
and have had a decent education. I live in El Dorado Hills, California, with my wife of 14 years, Lorna, and our 5 children. Nicole is 15, Patricia 14, Christopher 13, Dylan 9, and Avery 16 months old. Not only have I been going through this, but my entire family has suffered right by my side. We have all experienced the same type of harassment on different levels. We have all suffered the same symptoms while this harassment was going on. Some of our physical symptoms include severe tooth decay and vision loss, unexplained rashes and burns, severe headaches, mood swings, anxiety, thyroid problems, high blood pressure, heart problems, vision loss and cancer. Two of my children were born premature, which I attribute to this. Our son Dylan, now age 9, was born very premature. He was born at 31 weeks. During her pregnancy with Dylan, we were being targeted more so than other times. At the delivery there were weird men walking and waiting around the hospital. Right outside our delivery room window, there was a white cargo van parked with 2 suspicious men inside. They were there the entire labor, a delivery. Our son had to be transported to another hospital 45 minutes away. When arriving to the Toa hospital, those same men and van were present. Three of my children have severe rashes that have not been explained by several doctors. These rashes have been present for several years at a time. If interested, I will gladly furnish you with detailed photos of the rashes. Our infant daughter, at 3 weeks old, was diagnosed with Lerner syndrome. This was after a severe rash appeared on her body after a few days of torture. We were told by a couple doctors to take her home and love her and spend the rest of the time we have with her. They told us she would ultimately die from this syndrome. Thank God that Lerner syndrome was not what affected our daughter. Doctors are still dumbfounded by her rash and symptoms. Sadly, we know that her symptoms were effects from the torture this poor innocent 3-week-old baby endured.
Why? Was it mentally unstable?
Miss Catherine Nestor.
My name is Catherine Nestor, and I'm from Pennsylvania. This commission has spoken of a long history of abuse of the human research subject. Although no one mentioned MKUltra today, President Clinton recently apologized for this. My young child and I have been used as non-consensual test subjects. We have been subjected to COINTELPRO-like stalking, remote neural monitoring, and electromagnetic torture, resulting in psychological and physical damage. And I won't go into the details of that because I have 4 pages written in here that is very similar to Connie's testimony. Please do not. My young child and I have been used as non-consensual test subjects. We have been subjected to COINTELPRO-like stalking, remote neural monitoring, and electromagnetic torture, resulting in psychological and physical damage. And I won't go into the details of that because I have 4 pages written in here that is very similar to Connie's testimony. Please do not wait 70 years to investigate this. I ask Dr. Amy Gutman to begin today.
And I am a victim of organized stalking, electronic harassment, microwave torture, B2K abuse, and I'm asking you to help us end this crime against humanity, which has impacted men, women, children all around the world.
Hi, I'm Wan from Malaysia. My family are targeted individuals. We are victims of cyber torture, and I will not give up. I will fight to the end.
And I'm a victim of organized
We need this to stop.
electronic harassment. And I'm speaking to you on International Targeted Individual Day. I live in the U.S., in Illinois, and I'm a victim of organized
We need this to stop.
electronic harassment, microwave torture,
I've been targeted for 9 years.
24/7.
Please become more aware of this crime and those that the crime is being committed against. We need your support and help in ending this crime.
Hello, my name is Wendy Brown. I'm a targeted individual who is living in New Zealand, but my targeting began in California. I'm an American citizen, and the targeting continues in New Zealand. I'm making this video in remembrance of Targeted Individual Day, our 3rd annual Targeted Individual Day. And I'm asking that every honest-hearted human being open their eyes to a crime.
My name is Jeanette. I am 56 years old and I live in Baltimore, Maryland. I am a victim of covert electronic harassment and torture. I am a targeted individual.
Why? Because it hurts. I need help. I need you guys to come get me. It's brutally painful. I have a house, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms.
Miss Catherine Nestor.
My name is Catherine Nestor, and I'm from
In 1965, DARPA launched Project Pandora, which studied the possibility of using microwave radiation to control human behavior. The project reportedly ended in 1969, but DARPA's investigation of how machines can affect and possibly control the brain continues to this day. The mind can be altered. In 1965, DARPA launched Project Pandora, which studied the possibility of using microwave radiation to control human behavior. Innocent citizens being controlled by government-sanctioned experiments. Is Cheryl Welch telling the truth, or are her claims absurd? Just another conspiracy theory that's impossible to prove. Maybe. But not if you listen to Nick Page.
I think there's some good evidence that Cheryl Welch and many of the other people I've spoken with have been victimized by this electromagnetic mind control experiments. The weapons of this century aren't bombs and bullets and ordnance, but electromagnetic energy targeting the human being, which is the greatest revolution in military affairs since gunpowder.
Page is an expert in government mind control. He is convinced the Pentagon has mastered a technology once thought to be science fiction. The ability to broadcast information directly into the human brain.
Our government began spending a lot of time looking at how to modify behavior of human beings. Going back to the Korean War, in fact, in a publication, Low Intensity Conflict in Modern Technology, they have a chapter on electromagnetic weapon systems being able to not just debilitate someone, but actually even to stimulate certain activities within the brain. the effects on wireless communications. But Megan says HARP can also be used for more sinister ends. HARP has announced several other programs and campaigns, and there's two areas that I got very concerned about. One was weather modification applications. The other was the effect on human beings. If you can modulate a signal that the brain locks onto, recognizes, and begins to mirror or follow the frequency following response, the brain rhythms change, then it creates a chemical cascade within the brain, and the emotions change. Now the resolution gets finer and finer and finer. And it used to just to be about triggering emotions. You can change people's brain chemistry pretty readily, change their emotional state pretty easily. But when you get down to the idea of thoughts and being able to manipulate those, that requires a different kind of sophistication. Can we use sounds?
Designed to interact with the human nervous system in order to remotely pick up on someone's neural network or EEG and not only receive that and monitor it, but manipulate it and place it back into the victim to control their emotions or control their actions or bodily functions for that matter. The other more recent term we have for that is EEG heterodyning or EEG cloning. The difference between EEG heterodyning and EEG cloning would be, let's say, me remotely receiving your EEG and then duplicating it and putting that in another person to give them your same thoughts or feelings or physical reactions. EEG heterodyning would be receiving your EEG, manipulating it to put it back inside your head to give us a desired physical reaction or emotional reaction.
Frequency Dosimetry Handbook, 1986, University of Utah, produced for the Air Force. It gives you the resonant frequencies for each vital organ so that you can send in a radio signal that will couple with the liver, the kidneys, the lungs, and cause them to malfunction so that you can degrade the performance of your adversary. The new weapon systems being developed today will attack the mind, the body, and our physiology on an energetic level. Not with bullets and bombs. It's a perfect Republican weapon. No offense to Republicans here, but you don't want to destroy the property. You have to rebuild it afterwards. This is a weapon systems of the 21st century. It's the very beginning of it in a lot of ways, but the research goes back over 50 years.
My name is Dr. John Hall. I'm a medical doctor from Texas. As I understand the memorandum from the President, it's for you to determine if current legislation is adequate in protecting individuals and if there's any ongoing experimentation. In reviewing the common rule, it's very obvious that there's a lot of loopholes to informed consent. All of the horrific experiments you've mentioned, Willowbrook, MK Ultra, radiation experiments, mostly were done without informed consent. They were funded by the DoD and intelligence agencies, where I'm not even so sure you would know if there's an IRB, much less if an IRB is looking at informed consent. As a physician, relative to some of what you're hearing today, in the community, we are seeing an alarming rate of complaints of use of electromagnetic weapons, microwave auditory effects, silent sound spectrum, EEG cloning, which has taken the lab out of the laboratory and into the home. Most of these, from the research that we reviewed, can be done remotely. It seems to be more weapons research than medical research. I personally corresponded with upwards of 1,500 victims, all complaining of identical complaints from every state in the nation of being exposed to electromagnetic radiation, non-ionizing radiation for the use of cognitive control or behavior control. I submitted a paper to you, and there's another paper submitted to each member from another physician in Kansas City, alluding to the same thing.
Do that, you can control them using neuro-linguistic programming techniques. You're rewiring their thought processes and brains. And so this gets into what's called offensive information warfare. And they used it, I believe, in the Gulf War. You can call it a eugenics program. But also walk them to their. They want to see if they can hyper game theory. How do you? They want to see if they can manipulate people to do things that are irrational, but also walk them to their death. And so you can call it a eugenics program. And they need to sample all cultures, language throughout the world to define their probability matrices of which tricks, techniques, deception works. So how do you control the brain? Most people don't believe that, but you can't control me. I have my own free will.
V2K, or voice to skull. This involves the projection of voices, noises, and music directly into my mind to communicate with me in real time and at the speed of thought. And it also includes the manipulation of thoughts, emotions, and perceptions in the person's mind. Additionally, the targeting is all highly perverted and sexual, as well as just
It is dramatic. It's somebody trying to end my life. It's somebody trying to end who I am as a person. It's somebody trying to take over my mind. But he thought of it. Like, this disgusting thing. You saw where I was going with that first word. Disgusting thing that I don't even want to talk about because it makes me sick. I don't even like those words in my mind. But it is what it is. So I have no choice now but to acknowledge that there are people in my surroundings or whatever they're doing. I don't know how they do it. I don't care. I don't know if it's through weapons. I don't know. I don't care.
This is a common breakdown tactic of belief systems and the human will. In no-touch torture, the techniques are more psychologically specialized for each target. Most common examples include homosexual targets that are forced with voices that are derogatory to their lifestyle and similar mental images. Almost all targets are forced to view child pornography in their minds. And vice versa.
experience what is referred to as malodorance. This is the alteration of the smell sensation so that I am often made to smell various things, including smoke, burning, dirty diaper, or baby powder, which they sometimes combine with the pedophilia type of torture, including the threat of planted drugs.
Any information on the brain of a person, presumably by some kind of waves, which in the mind take the form of voices, thoughts and images and imagination. In addition to this kind of implanting information that they need, they manipulate the psyche so that the information is written into your memory. Then by stimulating the certain regions in the brain, they can retrieve this information and present it as your own memory. This is the conclusion that can be made judging by the influence they have been making on me with their psychotronic weapons, for example artificial thoughts, imagination, and mental torture.
I also often see highly disturbing pornographic images and videos, including highly disturbing pedophilia type of images and videos when I close my eyes.
Disorder. This is a paranoid schizophrenia. But first of all, nobody develops paranoid schizophrenia in the 50s, in their 50s. This is, if you haven't developed it by 30, it's not. Then this technology exists. These nefarious programs exist, and it's hard to imagine for a person that why would you do something like this? But if you think about the new type of warfare, cognitive warfare. Exactly, it's a cognitive warfare. You don't have to kill people that you are fighting against. You can just degrade their brain. You can
You alter their minds.
Yeah, alter their minds,
personalities.
And it's like Chinese torture. I mean, okay, so.
this gets into creating Manchurian candidates, split personality, and information curtains, satanic ritual. Okay, so they'll say we're the Russian government, we're the Chinese government, we're evil aliens, we're Satan's. So they'll say we're the V2K. So they'll say we're the Russian government, we're the Chinese government, we're evil aliens, we're Satan's, satanic ritual abuse. And I've heard all these stories. One guy believed it was some 14-year-old kid with an Xbox that lived next door. The trickery really is that great when you're under hypnosis that people will believe something other than a massive government could do this.
Okay. Now, I know that this is something I always put in their face. You started off hearing what they were calling the Aweee. Why this Aweee thing, as you see this picture of Mariana describing what she experienced, the children she was teaching going through, grabbing their genitals because they're in pain, and because this weapon system of the 21st century was being applied toward these babies. These trash are lowlifes to deflect what they involved in, to deflect the reality that they involved in something that tortured children in the ways you just heard. They will come up with ways, and this is the tactics of just disorienting and breaking down the target major. They want the target major to look at themselves in this negative way, as they force us to get this manipulation in real time. For me, this is how it goes. As they force me to have these nasty pedophilia reactions, as they do that to others, you heard that. They clearly do that to others. It's a system of tormenting tactics applied onto others. The pedophilia type of torture is something you clearly heard. That almost all target individuals are forced to see child porn in their brain. So they find ways to try to make me accept of that. For example, now, as disgusting as it is, what they're trying to make me think of is when I'm a kid, I'm sitting in the bedroom of my cousin watching TV. My cousin comes with her niece. They're about to shower her. Now, the kid is completely naked, nothing new. And they're like, oh, but you saw her out with there. I was like, okay. It's like, of course I will see. She's naked. And they try to change. Now you looked at her in this way. I was like, ugh. And then because I did this dumb thing to myself when I was a kid, that was an impulsive act. They try to say, no, but when an impulsive act of something I did to myself when I'm in middle school. It never happened again. It was an impulsive act that did. Like, no, but when you were looking at her, you thought about it. Like, ugh. Trying to come up with these things, and like, you're done. I was like, trash, you low-life bottom fears torturing children. They try to create like even a pattern that's non-existent, because today they're forcing me to have this nasty reaction toward these babies. And then instead of instead of the reality of like, okay, this kid did this dumb thing in this impulsive way, they try to find out, but when this kid was walking naked, you looked at her, she was naked. And when they say, oh, now you pay for what you did as a kid, it's like, I'm talking to people who literally torture children sexually. Tell me how now I'm going to pay. To the point where they're even making fun of this child grabbing their genitals saying, ow, to Aweee. Some nasty, or something like that. And they want me to look at them like, oh, they're going to make me pay. These people who torture children this way. Fucking trash. Target video, I'm sorry for my language, but just to imagine somebody who can, and the way they would talk to you is like, oh, it's going to be a murder. It's like, I'm dying, by the way. Like that woman that you heard talk about murder when my organs are being destroyed. I think they have to prolong my life. I think if it was death, I'll be so, oh my gosh. Right now, I think they're the one keeping me alive. Imagine you're a dying man, like, oh, our murder. We're going to murder you. This guy's is walking dead right now. He's dying. But they want to create this fantasized reality, and now you see we're mad because today they force me this nasty manipulation they do to others, and they put these things together and hope that I'm going to identify it. Matter of fact, you know what they do? Every time they do some whipping noise, as if I'm going to be like, oh, these people doing this whipping are not involved in the program. I literally do these painful things to children. I can never let them live their fantasy. I can never. This weeping noise, I just want to run to it. Because I know this shit wants to live a fantasy where they don't torture children. They know the way I even look at this Perps. It's like you look at somebody, it's like, this shit is truly involved in what targeting video. On top of that, this shit that is out here trying to make you accepting of this manipulation. They work for fucking pedophiles. These entities are filled with pedos. Now listen to the reality. Not too long ago, in 2019, the bill was introduced because there was so much child porn being trafficked. Before that, there was nastiness happening in this intelligence community. BuzzFeed article wrote an article that came out in late 2021, calling out why there's so many pedophiles in these agencies. These trash out here torturing children, and this Aweee, there's only so much of it on the computers given to them by the DoD that a bill was prompted. Listen to these things and understand that this is why I look at this shit, whipping, doing or whatever they want in this disgusting way. As they try to make me imagine things the way they want me to imagine with it, it's nasty. But listen to reality.
Department releasing brand new details into an investigation involving child pornography and dozens of its workers and contractors, some with top-level security clearance. Not only are these very serious accusations, but investigators say some of the people involved were handling the nation's most sensitive secrets, potentially making this a matter of national security. Chief Fox Report correspondent Johnson Hunt with the news. Appalling story, Jonathan. Do we know more about these people and their security clearances?
Well, we don't know their exact job titles, John, but what we do know is that they did appear to be working, some of them at high levels, across a range of government agencies. Take a look at this, for instance, the National Security Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, and the very secretive Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Others also work.
Two-year-old and a 6-year-old. He was simply fired. One employee purchased sexually explicit videos of young girls filmed by their mothers. He resigned. One employee estimated that he had viewed up to 1,400 sexually abusive images of children while on agency assignments. Not sure what actions, if any, were taken by him. One contractor arranged for sex with an undercover FBI agent. I think that you mentioned that. Posing as a child, he had his contract revoked. One CIA staffer was charged with child sexual crimes, and the employee was also under investigation for mishandling classified. But sexual crimes involving children, says BuzzFeed, including the viewing of images of abuse, have been uncovered at other agencies that handle sensitive information. In a November 2009 report, the Department of Defense acknowledged that dozens of Pentagon staff members or contractors had such images. In 2014, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community found that 2 officials from the National Reconnaissance Office, which oversees America's spy satellites, acknowledged viewing images of child sexual abuse during polygraph examinations. This is so disturbing. At a symposium in 2016, Daniel Payne, a top Pentagon security official, said that when workers' computers were examined, the amount of child porn I see is just unbelievable. Is this something that is happening in a general evil?
Ali, we're told, and when I was put through recruitment into the intel community, you're put through polygraphs, you're put through a rigorous selection process. Why aren't these people weeded out? Why are so many pedophiles allowed to be given top-level security clearance? Remember, these aren't just people walking in off the street and saying, hey, can I get hired, can I get a job? You're put through an extremely rigorous background check screening process. It's called an SSBI, single scope background investigation. There are people, they interview you, they interview your family, they interview your contacts, they go through your online footprint, they go through everything. So why is it that when they're going through these footprints, they're not checking, these digital footprints, they're not checking for so many pedophiles getting through their ranks? If it were up to me, you need to go into Congress, and Congress needs to launch a brand new church committee, number 1, to talk about domestic surveillance operations, but number 2, to ask the question, why are there so many pedophiles sitting by?
CIA raping children and sexually assaulting children, and they're not being prosecuted? Where are
has come under investigation for links to the proliferation of graphic material called Project Flickr. Some 5,000 individuals have been identified as having subscriptions to child porn sites.
including many DoD-affiliated persons. So this ongoing national investigation has now prompted the House to introduce a bipartisan bill that would help the DoD stop the use of its network to, quote, possess, procure, or produce child pornography. Joining us to discuss this, investigative journalist Ben Swan. So Ben, the Pentagon already takes measures to limit worker access to stuff like porn by rolling out what they call the Personal Electronic Device PED policy, where workers have to drop off their phones and lockers before entering their offices. All their online searches are accessible by security if or when needed. Their Wi-Fi access is monitored in digital security suites. So how is this happening?
Well, it's happening because even though there is a certain amount of limitation on access, those who are working in the Department of Defense, clearly it appears to be thousands of individuals in the Department of Defense, are finding ways around this, specifically by using the Department of Defense IP addresses and also apparently peer-to-peer sharing within the department's network. So this study that was done on this issue, and it is pretty horrifying, Manila, to consider this. It shows that the Department of Defense ranked 19th out of almost 3,000 networks in terms of peer-to-peer sharing of child pornography. That is absolutely incredible. This bill attempts to essentially say, look, we're not doing enough to stop it from coming in, but we're also not doing enough in the Department of Defense to go after those individuals who are being recognized as the ones who are perpetrating this.
So Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger is the co-author to this bill. She said this, quote, the notion that the Department of Defense's network and Pentagon-issued computers may be used to view, create, or circulate such horrifying images is a shameful disgrace and one we must fight head-on. Now, the fact that the Pentagon workers, be they civil or military or otherwise, already submit to a gauntlet of daily scrutiny just going in and out of work, is it fair then to the tens of thousands who are completely innocent to further allow that much more government intrusion into their digital devices or the things that they're dealing with on their computers?
Well, remember that what's being talked about here is not an intrusion into someone's personal device or even their home. This is about saying Department of Defense computers are being misused to share, to spread, to access child pornography. And when you step into an office, whether it's a Department of Defense office or it's the offices at RT America, wherever you go into an office, you do not have the right to simply use the technology within that office space however you want. And you certainly don't have the right to use it in a criminal manner. So essentially this bill is trying to...
We must fight head on, Spanberger said in a statement. According to child pornography watchdog Internet Crimes Against Children Child Online Protective Services, the Defense Department network consistently ranks in the top tier of Internet service providers for trafficking child pornography. It ranked 19th of nearly 3,000 networks surveyed in 2018. Meadows said the legislation...
So it's clear the entities running this program have consistent issues with pedophilia. But this is magical that these people who try to make you acceptive of how your brain is all of a sudden altered in this fashion want you to think that you're not being altered. Bring up these imaginations and thought process that are disturbing, while working for governmental entities that clearly show a specific systematic consistency in regard of pedophilia, where there's so much of it that a bill was passed and legislation was passed because the Department of Defense was down with so much child porn. This trash at bottom feeders, this low life, to try to counter reality in this fashion, while the level of these perps, one thing I know is perps, when they partake in this, instead of this is a type of things where you minimize yourself when you partake in this. They make themselves lower than what they are if they're not already that low. It's like you minimize yourself, you become something below you. Some of these people are already there, so I'm not saying all of them, but you literally have to become less than what you are to partake in this. And I recognize it. The way they've rewired my brain in this disturbing ways while working for these governmental entities that have these issues that they're nasty. And they'll do everything around you to kind of gaslight you and try to create anxiety for you to accept this manipulation that's clearly manipulation while working for governmental entities that clearly show a trend here that's disturbing. For me, I have no problem putting that in their face. It's so nasty to make me imagine this kid's private part just to rewire in these ways. And I was watching this thing that has nothing to do with what I was watching. Two adult people talking about sex. They started giving me sexual stimulation for the sole purpose to bring this imagination of this child naked, then to try to give me, like, just rewire my brain to have this perception stimulation toward the child. And using what I was watching right now in real time of this date show, and they're both talking about sex, forcing me to have sexual stimulation. But it's okay because we're talking about two adults talking about sex, but still force stimulation. Then bring this imagination of a child naked, and then try to make me have this sensation that they make me have today, and apply it to that memory. It's nasty. Or apply to that imagination, or the version of this memory, I should say. It's nasty. To try to rewire my brain in this fashion while working with these governmental entities, and it's obvious my brain is rewired. It's so obvious that my brain is being played with to have this and just to see where is it coming. So I will never let these bottom tiers working day in and day out, every day, to rewire, to restructure your brain. To think that I can even give them the fantasized reality they put together while doing these things to children. Target individuals, stay strong. This trash will make me imagine a child private part, to block out the fact that torture children's private part. Let me repeat that. They will make you think of children's private part to deflect from the fact that they do these things to children. They have no shame. It's like a war of like distorting reality, and you forcing you to be accepting of these manipulations and this persona they implant in you. Never identify with these manipulations and see this trash for the true life that you clearly here to have a problem of that nature. Stay strong.